Shalom. First off, I want to give all praises to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rakar Kodash. I want to give double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone. They'll rule well and teach well. And salutations to all the Akim that's pushing this truth in all honesty and sincerity across the four corners of the earth. Shalom. So I'm going to be speaking real briefly on, being a lone wolf, or the whole ideology of being a lone wolf. Gives a little insight on it, man, because, it do have a worldly perspective to it in the aspect of, doing your own thing. But I just want to give a little insight on it. So the reason why someone would be in that mindset and will bring someone to that conclusion. It's not really something that someone seek to go after, being in that lone wolf mode. But it happens, especially in this walk of ours. It's like, it's nothing personal, but a lot of times, how us as men, how we came up, and being aware of how, we are treated in a social setting, it kind of play into your psyche or your personality to be as such. Being in that mindset of being patient. It's good to say, let patience have its perfect work. So it'd be a mindset of, not being riled up, getting control of your emotions. Ultimately a form of stoicism, however you say it, Salakia. Being girded up, basically being unmovable, steadfast, part of the scriptures as well. You may come off as nonchalant or come off and be perceived a certain way, but that really may not be the case. Just may you be in that lone wolf mode. It's because you feel like you take the back seat. Say in a worldly perspective, we in the world but not of the world. You seem to take a back seat. Your opinion or your input may not feel like it hold any weight or certain things, so you just naturally just take the back seat. That can play a role into it. It builds a level of patience within you, man. So it's not an easy road. It's better said than done. You got people in the world, they'll say, I wish my circle was small and all this. People just complain. Because they say the bigger your circle is, and I'm saying in a worldly sense, the bigger your circle is, the more chances you have of getting betrayed, or someone, doing you dirty. So, we have a certain level of stoicism to where, we can restrain from those things of being up in everyone's face, and ultimately a form of not being a burden on other people. You have that sense of no one coming to save you, so you got to do your own thing to hold your head above water. Stay strong within yourself. Nobody really want to be a burden to anyone. Because that's another form of being a lone wolf. You're not laying your burdens on everyone. You finding a way to handle it yourself. That's your number one option. Figure out how you can handle it. And a lot of times, you may not vent, or and that's where the negativity come in. If you hold things in and don't vent and don't basically talk to brothers for comfort. So that can be a bad aspect when it comes to being brotherly in this truth. But as the Apostle Gabar said, you know, are your main enemy in this truth going to be yourself? You know, you constantly, you know, enduring that temptation, all right, or basically, or not temptation, but that's your suffering, or your long suffering. All right, scripture say, you know, it won't meant for men to be alone. All right, so sometimes you might have to have that time where it's just you to get yourself right. All right, then the Lord will, you know, say if you don't have brothers around you to fellowship, then the Lord will add brothers to you, or you to fellowship with Akim, you know, if you're ready for it, or, you know, or something that's getting a woman, getting a family, all right, when you're ready for that. All right, but the whole lone wolf phase, or the whole thing of being to yourself, is for really for your benefit, to get right. All right, spiritually first and foremost, man. But a lot of times it stems from, you know, feeling like you was shunned of the world. Not even shunned. It's just like, you haven't found your purpose or found your place yet. And a lot of times is not to fit in with the world. So that's why, you know, through the Spirit, the world sort of reject you and you reject the world, and you come off being a lone wolf. All right, but it can kind of play out into this truth as well, you know, by you not wanting to be a burden, or, you know, basically cause yourself to look foolish. That's another thing to play in. You know, you don't want to embarrass yourself. All right, so, you know, you might steady yourself, you know, because scriptures do say, you know, keep thy foot when you come to the house of the Lord. All right, you don't want to talk so much that, you know, you cause yourself to look foolish. You know, a lot of times, you know, you can say stuff that come out the wrong way, or you can offend a brother. You can say stuff that come off the wrong way. All right, you can have a slip of the tongue moment or certain things, but sometimes you got to fight through that. All right, that's why you got to work on yourself. All right, so, you know, you won't have those moments, or when you do have those moments, you'll be able to remain humble and not get the pride demon on you. All right, so it come with a lot, but some Akim have that lone wolf spirit, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. But you do got to learn how to operate within the body. All right, yeah, you know, you're going to be mostly to yourself throughout the week. All right, but there should be no excuse to not keep in touch and be in tune with the Akim, you know, going for myself first and foremost. All right, but you can't let, you know, how the world treated you and how you operate in the world, let it affect you how you operate with Akim. But I just really wanted to give the insight of how brothers have their spirit, because, you know, we had times where, you know, we was in the world, but, you know, the world treat us, you know, outcasts. They let us around, but they didn't treat us as if it was of them. All right, but through the Spirit, we're not of them, man. All right, it's nothing but debauchery and foolishness, silliness. You know, hey, you know, our people in the world just full of folly, man, and that's what we were surrounded in before we found this truth. All right, all it was surrounded was folly, man, and that shit get old after a while. All right, and you start to search, man. It's something, got to be something better than that, man. And the Lord allowed us to find it, man. You know, what we were seeking for our whole life, man. All right, but hey, man, you know, you're gonna be alone, man. That's part of your long suffering in this thing, man. But you're not alone. We're alone, but we're not alone. If you can understand it, we are alone in this walk, but we're not alone, man. You are not alone in this walk. That really should be the title of this video, man. But whatever went through the Spirit, I name it, man. But we are not alone, man. Just because, you know, you fit certain characteristics of a lone wolf, you know, doesn't make you an outcast, man. If anything, it make you a stoic. It make you, all right, maneuver as a man more. All right, you know, they try to make it as a bad connotation, which it could be. You know, it's a positive and a negative to everything. All right, you know, but the positive, man, hey, you be steadfast, unmovable. You move as a man. You operate as a man. All right, you're not letting the outside world dictate your actions or dictate how you feel. All right, but within that, man, you still can't shun yourself from the outside world. You know, basically, you know, sometimes, you know, you can't just be in your house, all right, 24/7, man. You know, you still gotta fellowship. You still gotta, you know, do good for yourself. You know, you gotta still be somewhat sociable, man. All right, you know, it's all for the betterment of your mind, man. You know, you gotta have balance. All right, but that's all I wanted to go into. All right, you know, Lord willing, it was edifying. All right, and with that being said, shalom.